Hello and welcome back to the channel. On this video, I'm going to talk about all of the books that I hope to read in April 2026. I've got a bunch of predetermined books on my list that I'm really excited about, and then I'm also going to draw 5 random books using a reader roulette card game so I can have 5 backlisted books from my Kindle, and I'll do that at the end of the video live. So let's dive into the books that I already have on my list. I like to start with the books that I did not get to in previous months, and for this month there's only one of those. It is called Wolf Hour by Jo Nesbø. This author is very well known for Scandinavian mystery writing, and this is his first book set in the United States. I had planned to source this book from another place last month, and then I ended up not sourcing it from there and choosing to source it from my library instead. So I have a few weeks wait on the hold list, and I hope to be able to get to this book in April. Okay, now let's move on to the new books that I have on my list. I decided to put all 6 of the Lindsay Gordon series books by Val McDermid on my list for this month. They're all relatively short. I have all of them on audio, and I'm going to try to speed through them. This is a series by Val McDermid that I have not yet read. Val McDermid is one of my favorite mystery writers, and I believe this is one of her earliest series about a woman who's a reporter who's also solving crimes. So there's 6 books in this series, starting with Report for Murder, Common Murder, Deadline for Murder, Conferences Are Murder, Booked for Murder, and Hostage to Murder. So I will plan to pick those up. I also think that they may have other title names. So if you're seeing different titles in the books that are coming up on the screen, I think that they have changed titles over time because this is such an old series, but I'm excited to pick those up. Next, I also put on my list the last 3 books remaining in the Game Changer series by Rachel Reed. Now, I've read the first 3 books in this series, the second of which is Heated Rivalry, which was made into a television show, which has been very, very popular. And these remaining 3 books in this series are the only ones that are currently published. There's another book that is set to come out, I believe, next summer, called Unrivaled, but remaining I have to read Common Goal, Role Model, and The Long Game. And I believe The Long Game actually is a continuation of the story from Heated Rivalry. So I've loved this series so far. It is a bunch of queer romances on different hockey players who play professionally, and Rachel Reed has been a really fun author to discover this year. Also on my list is Dear Writer by Maggie Smith. This is subtitled Pep Talks and Practical Advice for the Creative Life. I have been trying to read more books on writing and creativity this year, and so I decided to add this one to my list. I also have from my NetGalley Advanced Readers Copies list a book called I Spy by L.M. Kemp, and this is a book that is meant to come out in early May. It is about an ex-spy who is now a mom, and she is like kind of in hiding, and then she's discovered and has to come out of hiding. And I just thought this sounded interesting. I don't know that I've ever read this author before, but I decided to pick that one up. Also on my list is the first book in the Dr. Alex Gregory series. It is called Imposter, and this is one that I saw in a couple different ads. I think this series is actually quite long. Let me see how many books are in this series right now. 7 different books, I think, in this series. And this is about a criminal profiling unit that's been shut down in the midst of scandal and mismanagement. And there's a forensic psychologist, Dr. Alexander Gregory, who emerges unscathed. And he has a reputation for being able to step inside the darkest minds, and then he's drawn into the world of a new murder investigation. This book takes place in Ireland. So looking forward to picking that up. I also added a book called The Rachel Incident, which I believe is being made into an adaptation. I think this is why I added this one to my list. This one also takes place in Ireland, and it says it's a brilliantly funny novel about friends, lovers, Ireland in chaos, and a young woman desperately trying to manage all 3. She's a student worker, Rachel, the main character, in a bookstore when she meets James, and it's love at first sight. And it says that he soon invites Rachel to be his roommate. They begin a friendship that changes the course of both their lives forever. So it says it's aching with unrequited love, shot through with delicious, sparkling humor. This book is described as a triumph. So looking forward to picking that up as well. I also decided to pick up a book. It's a recent release called Missing Sam by Thridi Umrigar. And this is described as a thrilling and haunting story of an Indian American woman who becomes the prime suspect when her wife goes missing. And she has had a fight with her wife, and then the wife goes for a run, it doesn't come back, and this is kind of like a mystery that is being, unraveled throughout the book. So looking forward to that. Also added to my list, the latest book by Kate Ellis Marshall called The Girls Before. And Kate Ellis Marshall is an author that I first encountered, I think through like a YA novel that she had written. Now she started to move into adult mysteries, and this is her latest. It is about a search and rescue expert, a kidnapped woman, and the lost girls who haunt them both. It looks like there's a woman who's being held captive and she's trying to escape. And then there's a search and rescue expert who's never stopped looking for her ex-best friend who disappeared when they were teenagers. And then there's evidence of a new teenage runaway that might have been kidnapped. So I think it's like a bunch of stories kind of merging in one. So looking forward to that. Also on my list is All Superheroes Need Photo Ops by Elizabeth Stevens. This is the second book in the Supers in the City series. I read the first book, I think last year, and it's super fun. It's basically about superheroes having romances with humans. I think that that's really fun to read, so I'm gonna pick that one up as well. Also picking up the latest from Alice Feeney. It is called My Husband's Wife. This is basically about a woman who leaves her home and returns, and there's like another family living there with her husband, and he says he doesn't know who she is. And so I've heard actually really great things about this book, and it sounds like it's gonna be pretty twisty. So looking forward to picking that up. I also have on my list a book called The Gallagher Place. This is by Julie Doer, and also a relatively recent release. I think this came out, in December of 25. And it says it's a layered exploration of family secrets, sibling misconceptions, and an unsolved murder in a chilling debut set in New York. So looking forward to some thrillers this month. I also added to my list a book called The Renaissance Soul. This is by Margaret Lobenstein. I have not read this author before, but I'm always interested in books that talk about like people who have varied interests, and there's like a subgenre of people who write in this area. And so this is one that I haven't gotten to yet. So I'm looking forward to picking this one up. Also on my list is Nobody Knows You're Here by Bryn Greenwood. And this is a woman, actually a story of captivity. It says a desperate woman fights to escape captivity in this gripping thriller. Beatrice is about to lose everything when a kind stranger offers her a cup of coffee and a job. It seems like the promise of a better life, until she wakes up under lock and key in an isolated mansion in the woods. On orders from a shadowy criminal organization, armed jailers make the rules for their captives, enforcing them with unflinching violence. Beatrice has always been a nice girl, but that won't save her now. Nobody helped her when she lost her job, her car, and her home, and nobody's coming to give back her freedom. The only person she can rely on is herself, and now several child hostages are relying on her too. So they're all trying to escape captivity. I also have on my list this month a couple of books by Mia Sheridan. I continue to work through her backlist. One of them is called Most of All You. This is the second book in the Where Love Meets Destiny series. I read the first book probably a couple years ago, and this is about, basically these are series about people who are kind of damaged, finding each other and having love stories. There's a female main character that says she learned long ago that love only brings pain. She guards her wounded heart. And then there is a male main character who walks into her life, and despite the terrible darkness of his past, there is undeniable goodness in him. And of course, they have a relationship. So the second Mia Sheridan I am picking up is called Becoming Calder. This is the first book in the Acadia duology. And I believe this is kind of a, I don't want to say it's like sci-fi, but it's definitely not necessarily set in kind of our contemporary world. It says there's a forbidden friends to lovers romance where, it says there's a place in today's America with no electricity, no plumbing, and no modern conveniences. In this place, there is no room for dreams, no space for self-expression, and no tolerance for ambition. In the community of Acadia lives a boy named Calder with the body of a god and the heart of a warrior. He serves his family with faith and honor, but he dares to dream of more, especially when an angel-faced girl his age is brought to their community. So it's kind of like a dystopian/utopian kind of setting. So looking forward to reading that. I've also added a very popular book to my list called This Story Might Save Your Life by Tiffany Crum. This is a book about two co-hosts of a podcast who go missing, And their podcast is about against all odds survival stories. And it says their next survival story may be their own. I have heard amazing things about this, and I got it on audio. I heard it was really good on audio. Also on my list is Whidbey by T. Kira Madden. And this is another book I've heard kind of mixed things about. I've heard that it's amazing. I've also seen some reviews that are, like 3-star reviews. It is called A Stunning Literary Achievement and Portrait of 3 Women Connected Through One Man in the Aftermath of His Murder. And I believe these different women, like one of them is like his mother, I believe. And then another one is someone who's like a former person who was in a relationship with him, but he's like an abuser. And I have heard this book has a lot of trigger warnings. I have not looked up the details. So I would just note that if it's sounding interesting to you, but looking forward to picking that up this month. For a nonfiction book on my list, I have The Science of Organizational Change by Paul Gibbons. The subtitle is How Leaders Set Strategy, Change Behavior, and Create an Agile Culture. And I have seen reviews of this book that just say it's kind of canonical for this space around like change management and strategy. And so I wanted to pick that up. Also on my NetGalley Advanced Readers Copies books, I have Yesteryear by Caro Claire Burke. This is a book about a woman who is in contemporary times, and she's kind of part of the trad wife influencer, like social media community. And she wakes up one day and she is in 1805 and has to learn how to survive and how to get back to her original timeline. And I've heard mixed reviews of this one as well. So looking forward to seeing what I think about it. Also on my list is another very popular book, And Now Back to You by B.K. Borison. This is the second book in the Heartstring series. I read the first book, I want to say maybe toward the end of last year, and I really, really loved it. And so I thought I would pick up the next book in the series. B.K. Borison is a little bit hit or miss for me, but this particular series I've liked so far. So I'm excited to dive into book 2. And then the last book I have on my predetermined list is Across the Vanishing Sky by Catherine Cowles. This is the first book in her Starlight Grove series. I don't even know what this book is about. It's just a new Catherine Cowles, and so I'm picking it up. I'm assuming it's romance suspense, but let's see what the description says. Okay, it says, he spent a lifetime trying to escape his dark past, but to save her, he'll wade back into the shadows. Brayden never expected to return to Starlight Grove, the town that took everything from her, not after her best friend, the one who sacrificed so much for her, vanished without a trace. But with a young son to raise and a past that won't stay buried, she is back and determined to uncover the truth. There's your mystery that Catherine Cowles is so known for. And it says she did not count on the brooding, reclusive mountain man living next door. Dex is the stuff of local legend. And he, of course, is going to help her solve this mystery. So another romance suspense from Catherine Cowles. All right, so those are all the books that I have on my predetermined list. And next, I'm going to pull some of these cards from my reader roulette pile. And typically what I do is I pick 5, I shuffle them, and then I pick 5 cards and go into my Kindle backlist to see what might be available to meet the needs of that particular card. So let me go ahead and pull the first card. All right, shuffling, and the first card is read a book published this year. I feel like I have a lot of books that I have on my list that are very contemporary. Let me see what else I might have that I just downloaded actually, because I have some more recent ones. Okay, I think I've got one that might be a fit, but let me check to see what the pub year is. Okay, this was published this year. I'm gonna choose Her Last Breath by Taylor Adams. This is a book, I believe, about 2 women who it's like a claustrophobia kind of like thriller where they're in a cave and they're having to like get out of this cave. And I've heard people say that this like completely freaked them out. Like it's I don't know if it's a horror book necessarily, which I think Taylor Adams has written in the past. But this is one that I have definitely heard like good things about. So, okay, that's the book I'm gonna pick that's been published this year. Let me shuffle again, see what we come up with for the next card. All right, the next card is read a book based in a foreign country. All right, let me see what I can find. I'm gonna continue to look at some of the books that I've recently downloaded to see what might be useful here. And I think I might have found one. Yes. Okay, so I'm gonna choose How to Get Away with Murder. This is by Rebecca Phillipson. It is a recent debut, and takes place in, I believe, the UK. Oh, it says there's a Scotland Yard detective trying to find the author of a self-help book that promises quite literally to teach readers how to get away with murder, and it seems to have inspired London's newest murderer. So this is one that I had heard about, and I thought it sounded really interesting. There's a detective who's been on leave. She's recovering from a breakdown. She's coming back to work. She's trying to kind of like track down this person who's written this book about murder that is now causing other people to have murders. So this is definitely going to go on my list. And let's shuffle again. Okay, the next card I'm choosing is read a Pulitzer Prize winner or nominee. Okay, I'm wondering if I can search in my Kindle for Pulitzer and if it's gonna bring anything up. Let me try. Okay, I see one coming up. Let me check the book details to see if this is actually, okay, this is a Pulitzer winner. Perfect. Okay, so the book I'm going to choose is called March by Geraldine Brooks. And this is actually a book I've been wanting to get to for a long time. It is based off of Louisa May Alcott's classic Little Women. And the author has animated the character of the absent father, March, and crafted a story, it says, filled with the ache of love and marriage and with the power of war upon the mind and the heart of one unforgettable man. So this basically tells the story of the father in Little Women who is absent for most of that book. So I'm actually excited to add this to my list. It's been a while since I've gone into the Little Women world, and I always like to revisit that. Okay. Couple more here. Shuffling again. The next card says, read a book that inspired a movie. A book that inspired a movie. All right, let me see if I have anything recent that I've gotten here. There are so many adaptations out right now. It's kind of crazy. And I love reading adaptations and then watching them. Thinking through my categories here and trying to figure out how can I find a book that inspired a movie. Okay, I think I found one. This is a book I have not yet read. I'm looking at the book details. Okay, so I have found a book that was made into a movie. I just searched to make sure that it is actually true that it was made into a movie. It is The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, and this is by John Boyne. This is a book about Berlin, 1942. Bruno, a young boy, returns home from school one day and discovers that his belongings are being packed in crates. His father has received a promotion and the family must move to a new house. And there is a tall fence that stretches as far as the eye can see, and he longs to be an explorer, and he meets another boy whose life and circumstances are very different from his own. And if you know anything about this book, you probably know that it does take place in World War II. It is about two young boys who meet across the fence of a concentration camp, basically. And this was, made into a movie. And I've been wanting to read this for a while. I mean, it's been on my list and something that I've heard is very powerful. So, okay, I'm gonna add that to my list as well. And then I'm gonna draw one more card here. And the next card says, continue a series you've already started. Okay, this is always fun. I love reading series that I've already started. Okay, the book I'm gonna choose for this is one called Quietly Yours by L.H. Causeway. This is a book that is the third book in a series called Quiet Love. I've read the first two, and I really like this series. It's very creative. Like, the first book was about, if you've watched my videos for a while, you heard me talk about it. It's about a man who is a hotel security guard who's also mute, and a woman who's like a maid, a house cleaner, and then they meet on the bus and they end up having a relationship. So this book is about a woman named Ada who finds herself homeless in her 30s. It says she was managing a care home for the elderly, and then the sudden death of her father and stepmother, who she'd been living with, has thrown her world into disarray. The house is left to Jonathan, who's her stepmother's estranged son, and he wants this woman, Ada, to leave the house. And so this is how they meet each other. And eventually, it sounds like this is a little bit of an enemies to lovers, because I don't think they get off on the right foot. But there is this book in the series. There's also a fourth book that maybe if I have time in this next month, I'll try to get to that one as well. But I'm excited to dive back into that series and connect with those characters again. So those are the 5 books that I'm taking from my reader roulette game, and plenty of good things to read in April. I'm really looking forward to it. I hope you'll check back at the end of the month, see what I was actually able to get read in the month of April 2026. And until then, happy reading.